Welcome back to the LPL, everyone, where Game 3 is ready for us. And while the games are heating up, so too are we, as we are stretching and getting ready for this final match between EDG and FPX. And it looks to be a spicy one, because everyone's identified the key fulcrum to both of these teams, mid and jungle. Top has gone consistent, bottom has gone consistent, but how the mid and jungle have determined how those lanes end up shaking out has determined how these matchups have ended.
But very different ways. In game number 1, it felt like Scout was all about the controlled performance. You know, he locked down his mid lane in the team fights, he was covering the flanks, he was doing his job. And in game number 2, Cool threw down the gauntlet and said, no, it's not about control, it's actually about being a primary carry. So now the question for me is, do Edward Gaming look at an Aurelia pick and then just decide to take it away? Or do they recognize that, in my opinion, the true impact is the Camille? And from game 1 to game number 2, it was just a change about how they executed on the Camille pick.
We saw constant hovers of many different junglers by Alex throughout this, but we have to talk about how his opponent is going to be changing his strategy coming into this game, this final deciding match for EDG and FPX. Haro has been subbed out and Clearlove is making his return.
Yep, and so now it's a question about how that champion pool changes, because there are very clear fundamental champion pool differences between Haro and Clearlove. Primarily that Clearlove doesn't seem to play any of the hard carry champions. So something like that Camille pick, Clearlove hasn't shown a lot of confidence on it. I don't even think he's shown it for all of Summer Split. Hasn't played a lot of the games, where he's been more about the Trundle, the Sejuani, the Gragas, these disengaged style champions.
The classic pig on that Sejuani, the pig farmer himself, trying to equalize that matchup. But it should be noted that Sejuani, very clear and straightforward engage with the Glacial Storm. You just run it forward and land that. Trundle, same thing with the Pillar of Ice or Pillar of Filth, depending on your skin choice, to try and set up for the carries to find engage in this. So perhaps EDG could look to back away from going head-to-head against Alex and playing exclusively towards those lanes.
I would hope so, and I really do hope so, but it just seems like EDG's style has constantly been prioritize matchup, particularly for mid and bot lanes, sacrifice the top side of your map, and then the jungler just plays a security blanket. They just bounce in between mid and bottom, they place down some vision, and then they naturally win through their lane phases, as opposed to the jungler ganking repeatedly into lanes and creating advantages.
And this is what we saw at Asian Games in 2018 in the grand finals, in which MLXG, one of the most aggressive junglers in the entire league.
He is the most aggressive jungler in the entire world, Dom.
He stepped back and didn't gank once. He hovered bottom and placed wards and gave up his jungle and didn't gank mid. All he did was hover behind Uzi and Ming and allow them to take an advantage and snowball through that lane. iBoy is absolutely the player that can do that throughout the duration of this laning phase. Will we see Clearlove go as far to do that and sacrifice his other lanes, leave them to be independent so that he can set up that bottom lane? Go back to classic 2015, 2016 EDG?
I mean, I'd like to see Dark Clearlove make an appearance as opposed to Light
It is
Clearlove.
way too late for that.
I want to see the Carnivore, but ultimately, I don't think you could script the story any better from Cool's perspective. If FPX are going to take down Edward Gaming and give themselves their best fighting chance at retaining the playoff spot, then it must be Cool versus Clearlove. This is a story that is very, very old. These guys have been around from the very beginning. Both of them played before the LPL even existed back in China. And so if Cool's going to have a shot, he needs to take down the original king.
Yeah, the winningest player in LPL history right now, currently still playing for EDG as Clearlove makes his way on stage in Chongqing. Much like in the spring split of 2018, mostly it's been Haro setting the new pace again. This is a team that's trying to invest in the future. Inevitably, Clearlove will have to step away from the team at some point, and we've got to look at how EDG are going to grow and evolve. We're already starting to see a difference between these two junglers, but for now, looking at today's match, Clearlove is here on stage to try to guide his team to victory.
And that's the key point, it's a guide. We've seen Edward Gaming make a lot of shot calling mistakes. Yes, some individual mistakes in terms of iBoy's positioning and the likes, but ultimately when Clearlove comes back onto the roster, it's usually not a champion pool issue, it's usually not a playstyle issue, it's usually a confidence and leadership issue. You know, it's having Mako and Clearlove together and that intangible special something that it seems to create for Edward Gaming that have won them so many championships championships.
And look at that. Cool, showing some uncharacteristic nerves, biting his nails before getting into this final game. There's a reason his name is Cool. He's been one of the most consistent players in the history of the LPL, though he has been jumping around from team to team. It seems like he's finally found his home with FPX, and it's actually the opposite of his name that really sees him succeed with this team, playing towards the fire, playing towards the heat, playing towards the passion and the snowball. Of course, across from him, Clearlove looking to bring him down, looking similarly as nervous as his own hand shakes while taking a drink. But we're about to get into pick and ban for this decider match, this Game 3 between EDG and FPX.
So what has everyone identified? Well, first and foremost, we've identified the supports. Alistar and Tahm Kench are both off the ban list, and the priority pick with Alistar gone is going to be that denial of the Kai'Sa every single time that EDG have grabbed it. LWX is now on his primary pilot.
This is a very big champion for him, but that leaves a secondary hypercarry to EDG. That's Xayah, about to be followed up with by iBoy as Scout, taking a defensive rise in the mid lane.
I'm going to take a sneaking suspicion and a run at this one. I'm going to say you're going to see one of the oldest Edward Gaming compositions. They are going to stack hard CC, they're going to stack targetable hard CC, and they're going to make a team fight oriented composition front to back. Rise and Xayah give away all of that information, and it is one of the EDG specialties.
A very classic strategy, but with that focus very early on, look at what FPX get. That Camille once again to Alex. And Gimgoon, he gets the chance to return to his Cho'Gath.
Now, even though they didn't take away the Camille for themselves, I still think that with the Xayah pick, Edward Gaming are recognizing that Camille is going to come through for a third time for Alex. By having Xayah, how iBoy plays that, he can survive and outlast a lot of what Camille wants to do. And so Xayah is no longer just a easy, viable target for Camille to jump on.
Now we will see what looks to be a Xin Zhao hover from Clearlove. This is a carry role that he takes, but it does provide that targetable CC that we were talking about, and a similar disruption in team fights with the Crescent Slash to reset these fights.
And a lot of people think that when Xin Zhao is played in the LPL, that it's about diving onto the back line and playing more of an assassin. It is not. It is about fighting front to back, and like you're saying, resetting those fights. So when you see Clearlove pick Xin Zhao, of course if he gets snowballed, he's gonna go for the assassin. He's going to be the traditional bruiser, but 9 times out of 10 when we see a Xin, it is to play front to back. It is to reset those team fights, and it's to control zones of space.
And those zones are going to be so important. EDG, they've got Rise for excellent wave clear. They've got Xayah tossing out feathers to control space even more. Let's see how they decide to finish this, as they're actually going to be the ones to ban away Orianna, and Gangplank will be banned away from Ray. So still, it seems as though FPX recognized this strategy. Now, this matchup has been decided by mid and jungle in Game 1 and 2. Jungle's changing for EDG in Game 3, but FPX still might be looking towards Cool to go for something carry-oriented in this Game 3 if they want to try to close this out.
I feel like they're trying to funnel Cool into either a Syndra pick or a Cassiopeia pick, which can leave him really exposed to a lot of ganks from Rise and Xin Zhao, so he needs to be very careful. But I think it's pretty clear that EDG are going to be spending a lot of time mid lane just from their mid-jungle picks alone.
Very safe Darius ban away from FPX as they're focusing that top lane.
Maybe he goes for LeBlanc here just to for a bit of extra safety.
Whoa!
Uh-oh.
Never mind. I was like, it's iBoy, he's kidding. But then I saw he wasn't smiling. And it's been locked in Urgot for Edward Gaming. Don't forget the Urgot. I guess we forgot the Urgot.
I mean, we thought that Edward Gaming, by running the exact same composition and a lot of the same champions back to back, that they were hiding their cards for playoffs. But when push comes to shove, it looks like they've been shoved out of it. So I expect that to be Ray or possibly even Scout's champion.
In the mid lane, that could be very exciting to see the Urgot versus Aurelia matchup, because cool, he got MVP on the Aurelia in Game 2. Now he's warmed up. He is ready to go, and he takes it once again in this Game 3. We do see Shen locked in for Crisp in the bottom lane. Excellent engage with the flash shadow dash, excellent sustain in fights with Spirit's Refuge, and the ability to turn any fight anywhere across the map into a numbers advantage for FPX. That said, EDG are going to try to break that apart with what appears to be a Braum, one of Mako's signature champions.
And again, this was another scenario where EDG could have grabbed something like an Ornn, and then that would have freed them up to grab the Morgana because they wouldn't need to rely on the hard engage of Braum by having the Ornn available. But instead, this is EDG uncharacteristically looking towards their top laner and saying, if we give you the resources, if we give you the champion that you want, this Urgot pick, we'll take the bullet for it.
And we've seen this a handful of times. You can count on one hand the number of times that Ray has gotten a carry champion, and 9 times out of 10, he carries hard on that champion and provides so much, which always leads us to beg the question, why don't they play the top lane more? Why don't they let him get more carries and play this separate style? Well, that's not what EDG's known for. They're known for playing around the bottom lane. They're known for focusing on that bottom half. So sticking to what's safe, sticking to what's comfortable. But like we said, push comes to shove. They're forced out of their comfort zone. It's down to Ray now and Clearlove to upset this matchup.
And you can already see Clearlove fast and furious on the mic. When they bring him in, it's to fix those decision-making issues. It's to be that shot caller alongside Mako. So 2 captains now on this EDG squad. They want to win because they want second place. This isn't EDG coasting into playoffs with nothing to play for. They have to make a statement and they need to find momentum.
This is EDG deciding where they're going to end up, taking their own fate into their own hands. FPX trying to do the same thing, the two of them in this arm wrestling match on stage, pushing back because today only one of these teams can emerge victorious and get that final step closer to playoffs. For EDG, they're already locked in, but for FPX, this could be their last game of 2018 until the LPL returns in 2019. Will it be on a big old W, getting them into playoffs and continuing, or will they find themselves struggling against longtime opponents and veterans of Mako and Clearlove and all the new blood that looks to bring it back? We load onto the Rift. This is the deciding factor. The early levels have been so important. And EDG showing us, hey, we've got plenty of strategies ready for playoffs. Why don't we give you the charity case with this one here in this ace match, this Game 3 between FunPlus Phoenix and Edward Gaming.
And the terrifying thing about both these compositions is you have 10 damage dealers basically on the Rift right now, so it's bound to be bloody. Reminder, we are playing out the Week 11 as well as the playoffs in our away venue, so thank you again to Chongqing for the assistance here in opening up the snake pit to both the FPX and Edward Gaming fans. And as you can hear from the crowd and the Gyos, that they came out in full force.
Yeah, despite the FPX fans being heavily outnumbered, they're still trying to match the volume of EDG as Ray on this Urgot pick heads up into the top lane against Gimgoon. There's a lot of snowball threat if he's able to control that lane, something that Urgot excels at. But take a look at that. He's got unsealed spell book for teleport and more mobility with the rest of his summoner spells.
I actually really like that, especially when there's a Shen in the game, because now you have 2 unsealed spell books on the Braum as well as the Urgot. I think it's in a direct response, particularly the Braum one, because you are facing Shen support. So you have that added ability that if something cheeky early on level 6 happens, that Mako can follow up on it. Speaking of something
how that
cheeky,
shakes out as Alex is roaming bottom. No invade this time, but the flash, the shadow dash, the eye boy, the first blood FPX.
and it feels like so many LPL bottom lanes suffer from Shen. We have some of the best Shen players, but we are also so easily exposed by Shen because we are such an aggressive region. If you're getting ready for Worlds, if you're trying to figure out how to beat the LPL teams, just a pro tip, pick Shen.
There it is. That's an early smite used on a flash over the wall. Alex wants nothing to do with that targetable CC that we were talking about. Early push advantage for Scout starting to open up, but that Scout stepping forward. The stun misses. That's the ignite. Cool. Still getting some good damage through the minion wave, but takes some punishment back as it ends up being close to even.
Just by the hair of his chinny chin chin did he not connect onto Scout there, forcing the flash. Now, Scout wouldn't have died had the flash.
Oh, here comes Chris. It's round 2. The snare is ready, but even Gimgoon's getting in on the action. Alex finds himself another kill, and FPX, they're breaking this game open.
They just Such a hard camp. Now, all of this does start because they did get information about where Clearlove was. Because the early flash came through from Alex, got the hell out of dodge, didn't want to trifle with Zen into the river, especially when Scout had early rotation there. But having that information opened up that play. And if we talk about how EDG are all about the playbook, they're all about the control, you know, play a slow, measured, steady game, FPX is just firing from the hip. They're just quick draw.
And that Wild West style has netted them 2 kills in 2 very important lanes. Here's the mid collapse from 4 directions. Oh my gosh.
And if you're Scout, you're maybe expecting 1 person, maybe 3, but not 4.
Yeah, who on earth can prepare
What is he gonna do?
against 4 members? It was a family excursion. They brought everything except the kitchen sink. That was LWX farming down in the bottom lane. He's cleaning the meals that they're going to be eating later as they start trying to push back, and that's a snare. He's stunned, and a flash from iBoy locks it down. Mako chases and gets the kill, but Crisp decides not to follow. Another stun, but he gets under the turret with a shadow dash. And iBoy with the flash blade collar.
Good call from Crisp. I like the fact that he didn't try to trade 1-for-1 on Mako. Naturally, the Winter's Bite was just about to proc there, so recognizing, I'm not going to get this. If I stop out here, and if I don't waste everything to try to get away, it's just going to be a 2-for-none.
And EDG, iBoy, and Mako pushing back against LWX and Crisp. As we said, the shotgun staying just a little bit too long in lane as he just completes his first recall. Here we get to take a look at this, and it's actually FPX who try to take the fight first, but LWX puts his back against the wall, steps up a little bit too far forward, eats the Winter's Bite, and there's nothing that he can do.
It was holding the exhaust and perfectly timing it to bait LWX into the fight. That was mind games at its finest. Is immediately back to live and immediately more people in Scout's lane.
Yeah, Alex is still pushing in. Scout's holding the wave as close to even so that it doesn't end up pushing into him, or even worse, pushing into the Aurelia and opening another opportunity for Alex to look for a gank. And it's 2 kills to 1, but EDG find themselves on the board, and we're still watching to see what Clearlove does. He is the wrench. He is the new player that is brought in on this Xin Zhao, and so far, it's been a whole lot of farming.
I mean, frankly, he's got to get down to business, and he needs to either pick the mid lane or he needs to pick the top lane. He could go bottom. There's not a lot of flashes there, and they are very keen to fight, but I would prefer that he gives this Urgot a little bit of love, starts to get him going, because ultimately, for me, I'm not sold on the Urgot train. I know he got a lot of changes, that it feels a bit better in some of his trades and some of his lane phase. You know, he can be more effective in team fights, but from a holistic kit perspective, I just feel like any other champion, for me personally, is more valuable than the Urgot if it's an even 5v5.
Yeah, not a fan of the shotgun knees.
I mean, he does a lot of damage.
He does.
But he needs a lot of room to do so.
If he lands the first tick of his ultimate, it's an easy execution if the rest of his team is able to follow up with more damage, but perhaps EDG just trying to play the strong laning phase. But again, look at this. Gimgoon roaming down towards the mid lane. The target is Scout again. The flash onto him. Cool lands the stun. This time he dives and gets the kill. Triumph is enough. He escapes with his life.
It barely gets him over the line. That was so sick from Cool.
And look at that. A quick head roll from Clearlove, almost characteristic of Faker on the big stage when he starts to get a little emotionally tilted.
I mean, he's got to stretch it out. His mid lane is being camped to high heaven. I don't think there's anything Scout can do. They need to get vision control, and you can see that EDG are starting to play some of that vision, trying to find these angles that Camille's getting in, but constantly Alex is getting behind them because he's going through the top lane to get to this angle.
And absolutely crazy from Cool, who goes for the blade dash into Vanguard's edge auto attack. That's not a true combo, Indiana. That's not a true combo.
It's a brute force.
It is, but it worked. They find themselves with another kill, and it's 3-1 right now. We're still looking to see what Clearlove does. He finally finishes off a recall in between the vision placed by Cool on the bottom side of that lane and the one behind Red Buff, but Alex, he's a non-stop ganking machine. He's a monster. He's found Mako. Sidestep gets him away from Alex's follow-up on that Shadow Dash. LWX trying to look for some damage, but he's only got Double Dagger. Doesn't quite have enough to match iBoy's pull-through.
And this is why I wasn't really feeling the bot lane in terms of as a ganking priority there. I just think it's really difficult between Braum and Shen to actually make this connect, despite how much hard CC you really do have. So as Shin gets access to Stand United, it gets a bit more precarious for EDG to try to pick fights elsewhere on the map, so they may be forced into funneling their resources bottom. But in terms of FPX, they have so many more options about where to attack on the map.
I think this is why we're seeing the Urgot out of Ray, as he's just pushing back into Gimgoon and finally trying to control this wave, something he hasn't been able to do throughout this entire series. Perhaps now he's the one who's going to roam down and start to control the river, effectively denying Gimgoon the ability to rotate around without using his teleport.
But that control needs to translate into something. So, you know, I'll jump full aboard the
Sure.
Urgot train as soon as Ray starts taking over this game or
Once
really
you see
becomes
something happen.
exactly a pressure valve. But right now, I just look at Cho'Gath, I'm like, he's got a silence, he has a knock-up, he can secure monster
He's got
objectives.
slow,
He's
true damage.
massive tank. Like, I would almost always rather have the Cho.
And handsome to boot. I mean, who can say no to giant slobbering maw of teeth like that? But here we go, EDG. They're trying to get themselves back into this matchup. Down about 1,000 gold. Scout gets blue buff, and I'm sure Cool's looking at that and saying, oh, thank you. You got me blue buff. You shouldn't have.
You know, visually, I don't really like where the blue buff is wearing the, what do they call it, delay?
Delay?
His necklace, his floral
That's
necklace.
his head. Yeah.
Yeah, he's wearing it literally on top of his head.
Because he doesn't have a neck. Yeah. He's like the juggernaut.
Should I just lay one across your eyebrow?
Exactly.
Because that's how it looks to me. It looks ridiculous.
And look at this trade from EDG. They're actually able to get under the vision and look for the dragon, but Scout is undefended, forced to back away. Ooh.
He
A
survived.
good flash gets him away from the Vanguard's edge. Double teleport. Who's going to cancel? Nobody. Ray goes in, gets a good knockup. Alex tries to follow with the Realm Warp, and nobody gets into it. And that's Alex stepping up. He dies. That's the Crescent Sweep, resetting the fight as expected. But Ray locks him down to get the kill. FPX bite off too much more than they can chew.
And here comes the business. Clear Love diving right into that one, kicked him back to Ray, said, here you go, you're 1 kill onto the board, and
And
they're
they're not
charging
even
mid.
hesitating onto Gimgoon. Flashes away, but they dive underneath the turret. The aggro is juggled expertly. Still don't have the kill, though. Need to finish it off. Gimgoon steps up, lands the Rupture, but Crisp cannot do anything. And once again, LWX is farming bottom.
And somehow they're all still alive. Edward Gaming tanking that tower for
That
what
was a real long time, yeah.
felt like ever. But between Urgot and Zhao, they make sure to get it done. And EDG suddenly right back into this game where it felt like for the first whole 10 minutes, FPX were running a train on them.
Oof. Flash from Scout to get out of this. Good Rune Prison, but Scout just walks it back.
And it still looks really messy. I cannot believe both of those teleports went through and both teams were, you know, okay, we're doing this, we're going in. Makes more sense for EDG because they knew that they were running up from the Dragon Pit. And again, Clearlove finally getting involved. Dives in, flips him back to Ray, and then they see it's just Shen, it's just Cho'Gath. Cho isn't tanky enough to survive this. We can make the dive.
Just constantly juggling that aggro, as we mentioned, moving back and forth, trading their health happily to get the kill.
And it was Mako and it was Clearlove that made the initial power dive there. So again, that dynamic duo, whatever it is, when Clearlove is on the Rift, Mako just looks like a completely different player.
It's that veteranship, that decision-making that we were expecting out of the two. And despite Scout getting camped to, as you said, high heaven, he's still 100 gold ahead of Cool when it all shakes out after those kills. Now, Alex does have a gold advantage up top, but Ray is starting to open an advantage over Gimgoon, and in the bottom lane, we're seeing iBoy open another advantage. So again, it comes back to the jungle mid duo. FPX over-invest with the Camille and the Aurelia, but they need to convert off of it and not let themselves overextend.
Now, good news is for both these compositions is that if the early game goes sideways, they both have late game potential.
This time it's a bait. The Vanguard's edge. Clearlove over the wall. Groot Rune Prison, but Cool is still so low. Stopwatch prevents it. LWX tries to chase, but can't get under the turret. Winter's Bite. He's stunned, and they aren't able to get the kill. He actually flashes over, but Mako's on the prowl. Mako's on the chase, lands himself the concussive blows, and continues to follow through. Oh boy, and things have gone from bad to worse for FPX.
And it's just a read. Edward Gaming now have their number. They recognize where they are. They've invested enough gold into the proper vision to catch FPX setting up for a play like that and immediately respond.
And all of the early game control that FPX had by ganking mid, by controlling that lane, by controlling the river, is suddenly turned back into a lead for EDG in 2 quick plays. EDG identify the plan from FPX and open it up in a Realm Warp. Gimgoon gets chased down, and a fear beyond death from Ray gets himself his 3rd kill of the game.
And now EDG are starting to open up the map. They've decided that they're going to play a little bit fast, a little bit loose, and they're meeting FPX blow for blow. But again, EDG just had the right read. It's Mako and Clearlove again. They're sitting in Scout's back pocket. They're ready to finally help him out with the multiple ganks that have been leveraged at him. Good shield also. The fact that Scout manages to survive the Kaisa engage by getting the proper shield and turn around underneath the tower.
And that's the difference between Scout and Haro versus Mako and Clearlove, as we should still include Scout in that endeavor, but I feel like it is the Mako Clearlove duo who are following up, moving around the map, and matching the plays that FPX are trying to make.
But again, back to the primary point, even if anything goes sideways for the first 10 to 15 minutes for both these teams, they do have late game insurance policies. So Edward Gaming, they've kicked their way back into this game. They're starting to set up a very healthy lead for themselves, especially on this Urgot 3-0-0. I wanted to see the pressure valve. I wanted to have confidence about the pick. He's got the gold to give me confidence.
Yeah.
But that said, FPX, they have Kaisa, they have Aurelia, they have Cho'Gath. They still have multiple ways back into this game, and the series isn't over.
Now they're controlling this mid lane with Clearlove and Mako, maneuvering around Vision, setting up total control over the river, and even Mako matching the level of Alex on that support Braum. Over the wall, Cool finally going to be picking up this blue buff here, but EDG, they've taken bottom tier 1. This is the strategy and the plan. This is the stance that EDG take as they force control. Ray heavily pushing bottom. And iBoy and Mako pushing up top. It's just complete control of all 3 lanes and the river.
And I do want to point out that Mako is sitting on Exhaust Teleport right now with his spellbook. And so the Stand United is just about to come up, and that's what Edward Gaming are banking on, that it's going to be a Stand United play, that it's going to be quite split up around the map, and that they're going to be the team that beat FPX to the punch and really start snowballing.
They're still not waiting for that play to happen, though, as they're moving towards this Rift Herald here before FPX can look for a play, as FPX are now just struggling to take control over their lanes. All 3 get pushed in. LWX steps up top to look for the minion wave, but already iBoy and Mako are there to head him off. Rift Herald picked up by Clearlove elsewhere, while Ray, he pushed in bottom so hard that Gimgoon is only catching it now, and there was no chance for FPX to even step out onto the map.
And now, where do EDG strike? By where Clearlove's hanging around, you'd expect it to be the mid lane. They really want to use the Rift Herald there, but if FPX force a play topside, Edward Gaming will probably just reaction collapse towards it. Good board, though. Spots out everything and at least gives FPX the information to say, we're not going to force top, we're not going to force mid, we're going to sit back and just chill a little bit. EDG in response, they're like, force mid.
Yeah, exactly. Grouping up as 4. Even Ray pushes in a bottom lane, sitting on the teleport, but might be able to make it in time for this charge. Despite Aurelia having pretty good wave clear, she needs to get up close to the minions to do that. With a big full Chelly charge, it breaks down, and there's still no minion wave just yet in the mid lane because the next wave is a cannon, and in between waves, she gets her second charge.
The only unfortunate for Edward Gaming is that it's an Ocean Dragon as opposed to a Mountain or an Infernal. So they use Shelly effectively, they do break that mid tower. The easiest one now is going to be that top tower, but ultimately EDG, they should take the dragon, they should make their backs, maybe pick up their secondary items, and then start grouping together for these big 5v5s.
FPX, they find themselves completely out of their element. EDG, through 2 big fights in the mid lane, have completely taken control of the game. They wait for their opportunity and they strike. And the next dragon will be an Infernal, so at least there is some incentive to get towards that, but even with FPX trying to lunge out into the top lane and push a minion wave in for some damage onto the tier 1, that's the teleport paying off.
But at least FPX know where Edward Gaming are going to strike next, which is going to be that top outer by the looks of it. You can see that they're looking to park both iBoy and Mako into the mid lane, and then just have Mako either flex between being in that mid lane, being in the top lane. Grab iBoy some free gold. You can see he also wants the Wolf Camp.
Yes.
And then when time comes, they're either going to rotate top, or they're going to make a pick into river and try to exploit there. But we're waiting on Baron for EDG for the next big move. They're hunting, but they don't have anything to really commit to outside top tower.
Currently just controlling the vision around this side of the map. As you said, Mako flexing around with Scout and Clearlove, slow lands onto Crisp, and just walking forward zones him back. That's that bloodthirstiness of Scout rearing its ugly head. Only this time, that ugly head has got 2, 2, and 5. 150 CS against Cool on that carry Aurelia, and is happily split pushing in the top lane.
But FPX know that EDG want to be here, so they have these tiny windows where they can try to rotate Gimgoon and try to get a numbers advantage, or at least force the TP from Ray, before Gimgoon then has to walk all the way back down, push out this wave. So it's in those windows where Gimgoon is on his way back up towards his team that you're looking at FPX either finding a flash taunt, or a stray W, or some sort of pick. Because if they just try to hold the position against EDG, EDG will just break them. That won't be a winning maneuver for FPX. They're on a clock.
And that's what we see here is EDG maneuvering towards that top wave. It crashes in, and with 4 members, Ray holding down in mid lane, they're able to break down the top tier 1, not even staying to finish it off as they allow the minions to do most of the work and just constantly maneuvering back and forth. This Baron is going to spawn in 2 minutes. All of the outers have been broken. EDG, this is the game plan that we have seen, and that Kai'Sa sitting only on the Guinsoo's needs a few more items if she wants to try and match the damage of a 2-item Xayah.
And on the other side, the fact that FPX do have a Cho'Gath, though, may actually delay the Baron play from Edward Gaming just because of the possibility of a flash feast to interrupt things. So I'm curious how aggressive EDG will play around this Baron objective, not necessarily in just taking it, but also using it as a lure for FPX to continue to push the game, which is why Ray's going to be the breaking point. So Urgot, he's got access to the Black Cleaver. I'm sure if he's left alone with Gimgoon, he will have kill pressure onto the champion if he doesn't bring a sidekick. Now
we see Alex on this side of the map, and there is some defensive vision from him. Could there be an opportunity for FPX to try to focus on Ray, or by showing themselves bottom, would that be overextending and giving an opening to EDG up top?
Well, they have a tiny window to do it before the Baron spawn, so if they want to do it, they need to do it now. I actually don't think FPX know if they can 2v1 the Urgot. Not a lot of teams have experience with the champion. But Gamegoon is one of the few that has played it before, so hopefully they know.
It would be him, though he does have, as we said,
There's
the righteous
Gamegoon.
glory. Whoa! Chris tries to get the fancy shadow dash, and Cool gets left out to dry as a result. Forced to flash over the wall. Alex dives into the back. He's looking for Highboy, chasing him down, and they find the kill with Gimgoon getting that feast that we were talking about. Now it's up to Clearlove to get it down, but Ray joins the fight, and Fear Beyond Death once again, a double kill. Realm Warp gets Scout over the wall. He's chasing onto LWX with a straight stopwatch, tries to bait them in, but nobody takes it. And Gimgoon gets left out to dry.
And the big thing is that with the Cho'Gath down, the Baron is going to be spawning in 3 seconds. It's very easy for EDG to then fall back towards the Purple Worm if they choose, or try to push that mid tower that they already made a lot of damage on with the second Shelly charge.
And that's the trade-off. Yes, FPX, you dived. You found the kill onto iBoy. Congratulations. But what of it? You gave up 3 kills of your own and complete control over that Baron pit.
In fact, they're not going to do either. Instead, they're going to back. Everyone's going to grab control wards. And I think what they're saying is that enough big ultimates and flashes were burned in this engagement that they can just force another fight, then clean it up and take a safer Baron.
That was actually off of a great play from Gimgoon, getting a huge teleport flank to get in and find that 1 kill. So even in that, it was a bit of a messy fight for FPX. But we'll see where they decide to go out of the back of this. But it's just an easy chase from EDG. Though Scout, not quite sure what he was thinking there.
I mean, it was a disaster fight from FPX, just the decision-making alone. You know the EDG are hunting around here. The Baron hasn't spawned. It's just a blue buff. There's no reason to lose the game over that. And even though it didn't translate into a tower and didn't translate into the Baron, the gold discrepancy enough. That's now, what, 7K?
It's real big.
In favor of EDG. Look at iBoy's items versus Kai'Sa. The next team fight, with all of these flashes down, that's the nail in the coffin.
I mean, it's 1,500 gold advantage for iBoy, another 1,400 for Scout in the top lane, 2,500 gold for Ray as he is 6-0 in that top lane. Even the support is 1,400 gold ahead as Mako has been picking up a huge number of these assists, just tag teaming with Clearlove, following up on Scout's aggression to find these kills. And somehow the senior veteranship, the senior shot calling of Clearlove weathers the storm of FPX's early aggression in the mid lane and easily turns it around at the 21-minute mark. And as you said, they did pick up a whole bunch of control wards. They're back out onto the map. They don't have complete control over the Baron pit and are now setting up on the bottom side.
I disagree with what Edward Gaming are doing. I think that they're really afraid of looking at the Baron, but they keep pinging it. But why would you go spend so much gold on control wards, place it all down bottom?
Because you wanted to get the Magi Soul Stealer on Scout.
I mean, the easy tell is that you're creating a security blanket for Ray. He's going to be kind of your pivot point between the Baron and that bottom lane. It also gives you access to the Infernal. But ultimately, to me, it's not the most effective way that you could have played. I feel like if, again, you're playing RNG or Invictus Gaming, as soon as they killed the Cho'Gath underneath this blue buff,
you go to Baron.
They would have immediately turned on Baron.
Yeah. Perhaps EDG playing with their food a bit, knowing that they have got the flexibility in point standings to try and flex back over their opponents. And as we saw in that game too, it's not just a matchup between these two teams. It is very clearly personal.
They lost a lot of time here. They go and they've sweeped out the Baron pit, but again, they lost a lot of access to their previous control wards, and I feel like what could have been a 20-minute Baron, or just about, is probably going to be closer to a 25, 27-minute Baron now.
If they find an opportunity to, as FPX are starting to get some items of their own. Triforce finished off by Cool. He's still building towards what looks like the Titanic Hydra. LWX getting pretty close to that Gnasher's Tooth. Still not going to be quite able to match the damage of that Zaya, but at least he'll be able to chunk out some of the squishier members of EDG if a fight were to break out.
And that's why the Baron timing is so important. It's because Kai'Sa is getting closer and closer to those big damage breakpoints. In fact, I'm sure that after this next wave, if he makes his back, he'll have enough gold for his item.
Yeah. There we go. That's the recall. Scout is split pushing bottom with teleport, so it does look like that's EDG's game plan to play around that Baron right now. As a BF sword has just been picked up by iBoy. There's the Gnasher's Tooth from LWX. We'll see what he decides to go for third. The Rabadons for massive plasma burst, or the safety of Azanya's instead, as that'll speak towards his play style on the champion. But Cool, setting up a stun, forcing Mako back. Finds iBoy separated. He takes to the skies. Cool stun, but uses a stopwatch. Teleport gets Scout in, and that's a quick trade around. Cool forced to back away. Shadow Dash from Christmas. He goes deep. LWX dives in. He's killed iBoy. Flashes over the wall. Realm Warp. He takes the long way around, but is flanked from two directions. And how on earth did Ray land that? No one will ever know, but somehow he gets the kill. Kill secure. And again, 3 kills for 1 for FPX. Yes, you kill iBoy. Congratulations, but at what cost?
And Edward Gaming are just so far ahead of FPX at this point. The gold lead is just speaking for itself and just straight face tanking the tower. It is doing no damage to Urgot right now.
Yeah, Ray is real big. I believe that puts him at 7-0 with that kill. As the inhibitor is broken down, Alex and Gimgoon pull back, and EDG make their way out of the base, deciding not to finish it here.
And it's just a fundamental collapse from FPX. This is multiple times over the course of the series that their key players, Cool and LWX, have just frankly been caught out of position. Cool thinks that he can make the play onto iBoy, doesn't respect the vision control that EDG have, and he finds himself far deeper than he ever wanted to be. LWX says, I'll try to make the hero play, and then he's stuck between a rock and a hard place, which it's Rise and it's Urgot.
9,999 true damage is a great reminder to LWX that positioning is very important in these fights. But Baron being started off by FPX, not EDG. They're making their way out of base after some late recalls after taking down the middle inhibitor. They're trying to force a fight here. The target is iBoy. Once again, Alex goes in. LWX dives into the back. He might be able to kill it. This time he does. LWX trying to heal it out, but finally will end up dying to Clear Love. But with that damage source dead, it's all down to Cool. He's over the wall, forced to back out. Blade Surge is ready, but Clear Love stalls it out. Rupture as Gimgoon soaks the hits. Gets double knocked up, triple knock up, and will die as Ray gets himself another kill and a triple to Clear Love.
And Ray denied Clear Love the Quadra. Where is the justice there? At first, that team fight looked very sideways for Edward Gaming. I thought for a split second that FPX were going to be able to capitalize there, but excellent CC and target selection from Mako, Ray, as well as Clear Love to turn that one back around. And I believe also a stopwatch? Yeah, Clear Love stopwatch.
5-0-11 on Clear Love, 8-0-2 on that Urgot. And here's the fight again.
And again, miscommunication. Are we forcing the team fight or are we staying onto the Baron? And it looked like Gimgoon was a bit slow to the call. Now at this point, you're thinking, uh-oh, Cool may actually be able to hard carry this fight. The Aurelia has done a ton of damage. It looks like they're going to come through, but Clear Love uses the stopwatch, doesn't fall, they don't change targets soon enough, and Ray is just full health. Urgot, just sitting there.
With Flash, I might add, throughout that entire fight. Didn't need it. As the monolith of death was able to just walk
He's 8-0-2.
through.
No one can do anything.
Huge. With a stopwatch. Is big man, big boy.
Big tank.
Yes.
Big damage, big execute.
Absolutely a big boy. As, they're going to find Mako out of position. iBoy is there. The door gets raised by Mako, and he steps away from the plasma. Cool on the side, pulling the minion wave, but Scout looks for some damage, eats himself a stun. Gimgoon drops the feral scream, but here comes Ray. Chugga-chugga-choo-choo, the train of death, chasing it down. Ray flashes in, lands himself Fear Beyond Death, but does he have enough damage to get the execution? Finally pulls it in and chases it down. iBoy gets the kill, and Ray with the stopwatch stalls it out. Elsewhere, the rest of FPX were dying to other threats, but here we go. Realm Warp onto the inhibitor as EDG are trying to end the game right here and now.
And they've done it. Ray responds back to the base. He's got the TP in the back pocket. It looked so much more confident from EDG this time around. 10k gold advantage, diving onto FPX, and they will clean up the series.
And with Cool's death, they turn onto the Nexus itself. As you said, closing out the series, taking the 2-1 victory over EDG.
Our producer just came in and handed us a belt.
Should I be putting this on? Or should I be popping it after that performance? Because that was rough. Real rough.
I think it's a prop to say how rough it was. In all honesty, that Urgot wasn't a fan of the pick. Still not really a fan of the pick. I think he was the byproduct of a lot of different factors that came into that. That said, he understood how powerful he was, he understood what he needed to do on the champion, and he did so brilliantly. So congratulations to Ray, and congratulations to Edward Gaming. They are that much closer to taking second.
Yeah, controlling those side waves and making sure that he's got some push and can keep Gimgoon busy, because Gimgoon was the volatile factor throughout most of those early trades, throughout the chance to try and open the game up against EDG by participating in those fights across the map with or without his teleport. But still, we got to look towards that mid-jungle duo. Clearlove, we asked questions in the early game. Where was he? Is it going to be light or dark? He was just waiting for the right opportunity.
Now back to the standings. At this point, what needs to happen for FPX to retain the spot is that Snake must lose both their sets against Team WE as well as Edward Gaming. Now, they did their job in that they wanted to have one game or one takeaway from EDG, and they managed to do that, but unable to take the series.
And 28 minutes in, EDG close out Game 3, taking that big W. And as you said, FPX, it's no longer in their hands. It's up to Snake to see who will take that final playoff spot.
It means that if you're a Cool fan, that you are now the #1 Team WE fan.
Yes, because they're going to be playing in our next matchup, and that one very well could decide that final playoff spot. But EDG, that was rather unexpected to see them come in that furious in Game 3. Game 1 and 2, they've been looking like that standard EDG style, a little bit reckless. Yeah, they've got control. Yeah, they've got aggression with the jungle through Haro. But when it came down to Game 3, when it came down to that deciding factor, they played like it was playoffs. Like they had that playoffs buff already prepared. So they're showing, hey, they're prepared.
If that's their playoffs performance, then I don't want to see Edward Gaming in playoffs. I still found a lot of faults with that game.
Certainly.
FPX basically threw advantages time and time again at Edward Gaming, and all they needed to do was catch them. That was never EDG manufacturing their own advantages outside Game 1 and Game 2's early game plan of when they invaded the jungle and likes like that. So EDG have now locked second,
yes,
which means that they're on the same side of the bracket as Invictus Gaming and have moved away from RNG's side of the bracket.
At least they're dodging one side.
Well, but ultimately, I still think that this is a very weak and a very fragile Edward Gaming.
Mm-hmm. Especially going up against Invictus Gaming, who have been on an absolute tear throughout all of 2018, coming into Spring Split and very nearly breaking the record of having the highest game win-loss record throughout the duration of the entire split. The only team to have beat them, I believe, was OMG by
Edward
about
Gaming.
2%. Was it actually EDG?
Well, OMG hold the split victory,
yes,
but EDG hold the season winningest victory.
So that's in matches. That's lossless matches. In games, I believe it's OMG at like 89%, and right behind them is IG at 88, and then EDG at 87%. So still very close, very intense as we get towards that, but they still have to make it to that Invictus Gaming matchup, because looking at their opponents, there's still a chance for an upset as we get into playoffs, because like you said, still a couple of flaws in their play. It wasn't the perfect, seamless EDG that we've come to know and love.
And it's about pinpointing where those flaws are, and again, it's kind of in that decision-making and that setup process. Time and time again, it feels that Edward Gaming have always been kind of a mid-game high tempo type of team. Their lane phase, it's uncrackable. They have very strong laners in Scout, iBoy, and Mako. Ray can hold his own on any type of matchup. That time around it's the Urgot. Usually it is a tank-oriented matchup. And then their jungler just plays kind of goalkeeper and just bounces between all of the lanes and lets them win naturally. As the towers fall and as Edward Gaming need to be that very clever team about how they're playing a macro strategy, whether it's because League of Legends itself is no longer as macro intensive as it used to be, if it's because more superstar talent have been injected into the league and EDG no longer just have the best players in every position, or if it's a combination of those two factors, which I think it's primarily that one, EDG have slipped farther and farther and they haven't changed up their identity. And when they then start to struggle with making correct shot calling plays, that's when they start to find themselves in very precarious situations heading into playoffs.
And this is where we talk about it being the transitionary year of the LPL. This is a year that very well could define who the LPL is going forward, and more importantly, how teams fit in this ecosystem. Because if EDG cannot keep pace, RNG, IG, JD, these teams are showing that they can.
But that's the thing. If you ask a Western viewer, especially an international viewer, who is the LPL, everyone is going to say RNG. And can you fathom a world, if you're a hardcore LPL fan,
where it's not EDG?
Where it's not Edward Gaming, the most dominant team that the LPL has ever created, is going to be wiped away from the history books in a single year by Uzi ascending to godhood and taking every single crown back to back to back. Something that not even Faker had the opportunity to do because Rift Rivals didn't exist in his prime.
He's got 2 left. He's got the summer split and then Worlds just after that, because he did take All-Stars and got the 1v1 championship as well. Our MVP for that matchup will go to the veteran of EDG in the jungle. Clearlove making his return, gets to lock down the victory at 7-0-12 and says, shh, it's all going to be okay now.
Don't tell them I played Zhao. It's fine, everyone already knows it. That said, it's nice to see the veteran return. It's nice to see how that changes up Mako's performance in particular, how they did react to FPX, but still a lot of cracks. FPX are not the hardest hitting team. They showed that if you throw chaos at Edward Gaming, they will struggle to react. And if I'm RNG and if I'm Invictus Gaming, I'm sleeping very soundly at night.
Yeah, you absolutely review the tapes of these games moving into this next matchup, because with that EDG victory, they will get second place locked in for themselves. Again, getting that side of the bracket with Invictus Gaming, but it's now 3 days left until we're into playoffs. EDG, they play again tomorrow, so they're not out of the woods just yet. They can still provide even more footage to opposing teams. Do you think that they show us any new strategies once again, or go back to this calm style that we tried to see in Game 1 and Game 2 by applying pressure? Because it's still so important for us to talk about. This performance defines how they're going to look moving into playoffs. It's 5 days away.
I think the most important thing is combating burnout as well as creating motivation. I don't necessarily care about hiding or revealing strategies. I think that ultimately when we come to playoffs, the playoff meta will be determined. Everyone's going to play the same champions. It's very rare in the LPL that we have a very, secret, deep pocket pick. I expect that maybe for Rogue Warriors, but otherwise I don't think any other team will grab something weird. And at this point, it's been a long year. It's been a very long split. Let's get everyone rested up, because like you said, it's only 3 days to playoffs. We need to take a breath at some point and reset.
Yeah, well, we'll have to see if EDG can do that. We're going to go and take a quick break while we get ready for our next matchup. Snake versus WE coming up just after the break.
请重庆的召唤师们继续带给 Snake 力量，雄起！